Hello, everybody, and welcome to another sizzling, red hot episode of the Chocolate Bros podcast. You're here with the Chocolate Bros, Adam and Brian, owners of
I
Fortunato
am.
Chocolate. Go ahead.
That's right. I am Brian, and he is Adam. And this show is going to not only be sizzling, but scintillating, as Adam frequently likes to refer to. We scintillate, Adam. If we don't,
Well,
if we're not scintillating, then what are we even doing?
what I would recommend to our listeners is they get some. I would fill up a glass with water and put it in the freezer right
Mm-hmm.
now, early in the show,
Ooh, yeah,
because
get ready to cool off.
because if you accidentally touch the device you're listening to this
Mm.
on or watching it on, you might burn your hand. You might burn it.
Oh, real good chance. And then that's like some kind of product liability thing that we just don't
Yeah.
want. So
So
yeah,
we're warning you now. Don't touch the device, or if you are going to touch the device, get some water frozen so you can cool your hand off afterwards.
that's a great idea. And
Okay.
I would also mention to the listener that we are the Chocolate Bros. I'm Brian, he's Adam, and we are the owners of Fortunato Chocolate, which you can find at fortunatochocolate.com. And you can also find us. Where can they find you on an average afternoon, or both of us on a Saturday morning, Adam? You tell the people, the good people.
Come check us out at our retail store at one of our two retail
Mm.
locations in Issaquah, Washington. If you come to
Uh-huh.
the weekday, you're likely to find me wandering around the parking lot with a sign,
Possibly dressed as a cacao pod, but typically
possibly
not. Too low, a
custom
little hot for that.
custom custom cacao pod costume. You can't find those
Mm-hmm.
in the stores. You have to have them custom made. We had ours
That's
made
right.
by a Russian tailor who smoked a lot of
Mm-hmm.
cigarettes, and it doesn't smell like cigarettes. I wear it now. Saturday mornings, Brian and I work an owner shift, which is a 5 hour time slot. That's essentially like a live episode of the Chocolate Bros podcast in our retail
You
location
know,
in Municipal,
that's
Washington.
right. We like to stay in touch with the rhythm of the working man. You know what I mean? With the rhythm of the blue collar working man. So we work an owner shift about 5 hours. I mean, I think that's a standard shift for the working man, right, Adam? A 5 hour shift. That's about all anybody can do without taking without taking some time off. Don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm out there every day. That you only come in once a week, but I'm out there
That's
every
right.
day. So I mean,
Wow, I'm starting to feel like your implication is that I am not up to the standards of the working man, quote unquote, the working man.
I think it's a token.
Um,
I think it's a token effort that you give. But look, before we
mm,
before we get too far into this thing, we've got a special guest that
Everybody, we're excited about this. We've had one guest before on this podcast, but we've never had a family member on the podcast. Who is this beautiful woman who's on the screen with us, Adam? Please tell
we
the people.
we've got the chocolate mom, the mother of the
That
chocolate bros, our mother, Kit Goldman. Say hello there, mom.
Hello, everyone from Cacao Mama here.
From Cacao Mama, yep. Now, rarely do you find three blood family members, each with a different
mhm.
last name. But here we are.
That is a great point. That is a very good point. We've got the Goldman, Horsley, Pearson trifecta going on
Yeah.
today.
I'm at
Mom, maybe we can start by letting the people in on how exactly did that happen? How is it that you have two boys, both with different last names, neither of which are your last name? Let us know what's going on.
Yeah, well, the 70s. No, what happened was so I married Dave Horsley, Brian's dad, in 1965. And
Mhm.
we were lucky to welcome in our Brian a few years later. I don't want to divulge your age in case you maybe have been
I have no
obfuscating about
compunctions
that.
about it. I was born in 1968. Anybody can know the truth of me. You can just
Yes.
look at my face and basically know it. So
Yeah, you look good for that
Well,
age.
but there's
thanks,
video
man.
settings that can deal with that, fortunately. So anyway, so Dave and I we had Brian, and then shortly in the early 70s, then Dave and I parted ways very amicably, and then some time later.
I've never really I've never really let out my true feelings about that, but today finally I'm going to have my opportunity.
You
By
mean
the
all
way,
those years of therapy didn't take care of that for you,
Absolutely
Brian?
not. I've been waiting to primal scream through this particular podcast.
and
So go ahead. You
if anybody wants to come into the retail shop on Saturday mornings on the ownership, I'm sure we can get Brian to break down in tears if that's something you'd like to see. We'll do that for you. Go ahead, mom.
Yeah, that's a good offer to the people. So yeah, so you and Dave Horsley were together you burned bright like a candle for a brief period of time, split up, and then what happened?
Like a candle in the wind, as the song goes. And
Mhm.
then And then then some years later, then in 1979, I met Adam's dad, Dan Pearson, and we fell madly in love. We were both pioneers down in this gas lamp quarter in downtown San Diego, and we may I should I get a little personal, Adam, and talk about the circumstances of your birth and how it was a
Yeah,
bit of
yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
miracle?
yeah. Go for no. Yeah, people love hot reproductive surgery talk on a podcast.
Oh, absolutely. The
Yeah, no,
reproductive
people are
medicine
dying.
it's
People are
It's a
scorching
hot
dying for
over
this.
topic. In
here.
fact,
Woo.
People are dying for
you
this
may be
content.
able to even charge to listen to this podcast with this
Oh yeah,
story.
it's so juicy.
Um, yeah. So, you know, I had been in a long-term relationship, and it wasn't a deep love relationship, and not with somebody I would want to have another child with, even though I always dreamt about having more kids. So I had a tubal ligation and said, that's it for me. Then I met your dad, Adam, and we really wanted to have a child together because we had this deep connection, and so we decided, after grieving over the fact that we couldn't, we explored it with the doctor, and we're told we had I think about a 10% chance of reversing it, and we went ahead and did the surgery, and then in February of 1983, um, you came along. And so you were a miracle. And I was in a show at the time because I was an actor and producing theater, and it was a big hit show. And I must say that they
So
had to keep
you were
letting
on
out my
stage.
costumes.
You were on.
Huh?
Oh, so you were on stage pregnant, performing until the very end.
Well, not to the very end, but when I found out I was pregnant, and then we extended the show, and then they kept having to extend my costumes because we didn't want to close prematurely. But anyway, that's the story there, and that's how
And by the way,
I
the last night of that show's run was the night you were born, Adam, and talk about a standing ovation. I mean, nobody
Oh,
had ever seen the finale was unbelievable. No one had ever seen anything like it.
and mom, how come you never decided to take a husband's last name? Was that also a 1970s thing, or
I did take Horsley.
oh,
I was
you were Karen Horsley,
I was Karen Horsley for many years.
and then with
Mhm.
Dan, you had built up enough of a name around town. You
Well,
didn't want to. Kit Pearson
yeah,
doesn't really roll off the tongue too well either.
well, it wasn't that. It was just I decided to take my own name back, and I'm Jewish, and that's a Jewish name, and it's where I come from, and so I just decided I would stay with that name. So
All right,
yeah.
so
Mhm.
that's a good little story, Mom. Thank you for sharing that. So
Mhm.
on the last episode, Brian and I were taking a deep dive into the city of Cajamarca, and the
That's
ration
right.
and the rationale behind that was that Cajamarca is a really cool city in the Andes Mountains in northern Peru, but almost nobody who visits Cajamarca or who visits Peru will take a trip up to visit Cajamarca. The main place people will go is what, Cusco, Lima. They'll go see maybe the Nazca lines, but almost nobody will
Yeah.
make
So
a
all
trip up to Cajamarca.
95% of the visitors that come to Peru go to, it's like anywhere else, 95% of people go to the same 5% of places. And
Yeah,
in Peru, almost all those places are in the southern part of the country or out to Iquitos in the jungle. But the north part of
Iquitos
Peru,
as well.
which is the
Yep.
part, yeah, but the northern part of Peru, which is where we do our business and where I lived for many years, is almost unexplored by international tourists. Peruvians go up there. So when you go to Cajamarca, you're going to a place that almost no international tourists get to. And last week, I know you and I have more to say about our experiences in Cajamarca, Adam, but we wanted to take a little interstitial break to talk to our mom, who's been to Cajamarca 4 or 5 times, something like that. Talk about the context and your impressions, the times that you have been to
And
Cajamarca.
and also, I'll say this: Mom is maybe our number one customer at FortunatoChocolate.com.
We would have to go take a look at the database, but you're right. She's
I'd be
definitely right in that top three.
I'd be willing to lay a wager on it. Mom is one of our top customers, but also
Absolutely.
Mom had the chance to visit the operation out in Campo,
That's
where
right.
hopefully in the future, with one of the projects that's going on out there in the district of Warango, hopefully someday we'll be able to take other customers out there. But also for our customers who enjoy the chocolate, I was also thinking that maybe we could talk to Mom a little bit about what it was like for her to take a trip out to Campo as well. And also,
So yeah, those are my questions. Like,
what's it like having a Peruvian American family and having both your sons marry?
yeah, those are my questions. Like, first impressions of Cajamarca, your impressions of Campo, some amazing memory you have since we got into chocolate, and what it's like to have a multinational, multiracial family. So ready, and you have 2 minutes for each, and go.
All
right.
Round, right? Well, I have to say, I remember, Brian, when you first said you were talking about what businesses you were looking at after your mining contract ended, and we were talking about it. And when you mentioned cacao, I had such a visceral reaction to that, such a positive. It was like something lit up
Did you
about
already
that.
know that cacao? Did you know that cacao was the base material of chocolate at that time? You'd
Well,
heard of cacao?
I knew it at the time you were talking about it, so you
Okay.
may have enlightened me about that. But I remember when you said it, it's something just really lit up about that for me. And I think I told you, I think I saw dollar signs coming out of your eyes or something like that. Seriously.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well,
so
that was a false signal.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. we're
well,
still waiting for that one to come through, but you knew that we would end up getting into
we're
business.
getting closer all the time, but that. Yeah.
Well, as it turns out, the dollars, yeah, they're going to come, but there's so much more to it than that. And I am just so proud of having a Peruvian American family. My experience with the Peruvian culture has just been fantastic. Coming to Cajamarca, I've heard you guys talk about it, but it really is magical when you fly in and you see this city tucked away like that. It was incredible. And so we came, well, out of the first time we came was that Bruce, my lovely man, and I came was to meet Neri.
That's right.
So who is Neri,
After you
Adam?
met,
Can you explain who
Yeah,
that person is?
I can explain who she is. Yeah, Mary is my lovely wife. As we
Oh,
talked
you're
about,
married. You're
I'm a
married.
married man.
Okay, that's good to know. Good to know.
As we discussed on the last episode, I was kicked out of college. I was expelled from college for being a wild man. We got into the details surrounding that on the last episode. I went down to Peru, and my first week in town, I met my wife Neri out dancing, and we dated for 3 months, and then I had to come back because I went to a rehab program, and the college had let me back into school. I had to come back to go back into school. I was there for 4 months, and I was just dying on the inside because I had met this girl and fallen in love with her, and being separated from her was just killing me. So I took a leave of absence with mom support. One thing I would say about mom supports people chasing their dreams. I'll give that.
And not only that,
and
specifically love. Specifically chasing love. Mom has always said, love's too rare, and you don't ever pass up a chance to pursue it. That is definitely one of mom's core beliefs, something that she's taught us both our whole lives.
Yeah, you go for love. So I dropped out of college, took a leave of absence for college with mom's support and with my dad's support, and moved back down to Cajamarca. I was living in Cajamarca another 4 months when Mary and I threw together a pretty spur of the moment wedding. And I got hitched up when I was 21 years old. Mom wasn't even there because everything came together so fast.
And had you already been down to meet Neri before Adam got married?
No,
Mom?
I don't believe you had been down there, Mom.
yes,
okay.
We were there before you got married.
Oh, you were? Okay.
Yeah, but this was shortly after you met. And by the way, I want to add something to what you just said, Adam, because you called me and you said the following. You said, Mom, I met a girl. I love her. I'm going to marry her. You told me that, right? Right after. And I remember too, Brian had warned you not to fall in love with the first girl that you met when you guys went out, and then you did.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Mom, when you get a call from I was either 20 or probably 20 or 21 when I called you at that time. When you get a call from your 20-year-old son who's saying he loves this girl he met in Peru, right? Of all the places, we're originally from San Diego, California. I tell people this sometimes. Before we started doing business in Peru, I wasn't that good at geography. I wasn't a great student growing up. I don't know that I could have pointed out Peru on a map.
It's
Brian,
weird that you got kicked out of college, Adam. I can't imagine. It's hard to put those two together, you know?
Yeah, the guy said, "Look, you have a drinking problem. You're causing a lot of hell. But if you can point out Peru on a map, we'll call this
That's
whole thing
right.
off."
But geographically speaking, you seem really sound. So we're
No,
going
no,
to paddle
he
right
said,
now.
point out Peru on a map, and we won't kick you out. And I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
I
Couldn't do it.
couldn't
No.
point out Peru on a
No.
map. So, Mom, you've got this young kid who's telling you this very impulsive thing, who's just been kicked out of college, and now tells you he loves a girl in Peru and he wants to move back down there. What were you thinking? I bet you most parents would be pretty worried about that. But what went through your mind when you heard that?
I, because of the intensity of your voice and the feeling that was behind it, I could tell, that it was the real thing. So, all I ever wanted for you guys was for you to be happy, and love. Nothing makes you happy like love. So you found that. And so I was actually fine with that. And I want to say, by the way, Brian, so you did fantastic in college, but high school was another story. And I'm only bringing that up because for both of you, you both overcame um, a lot of challenges and adversity. Came through it and became the fantastic guys that you are. So
Well, let me just say this. I told you we had a little pre podcast meeting where Mom was worried that we were going to let her carry the whole podcast, and Brian said, "Don't worry, Adam probably really won't let you go work in Edgewater." So that's
Yeah,
proven. That
no,
was
Adam,
prophetic.
that's never happened. That's never happened in the history of our podcast. Adam
That,
just will not permit it.
that's
I could
prophetic.
barely. It's like the
Can
chocolate
I, can
bro
I
point and
excuse me?
point,
Can
point
I
five. Excuse me, Adam. Excuse me. What
can I
now?
finish?
No,
Can I
go.
finish?
Yeah,
Can I finish?
can you? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Can
You've
I?
never finished yet. Are you
May I?
capable?
Excuse me. I was in the middle of something. Um,
Mhm.
for both
Exactly.
Brian and
Work towards the end. Work
yeah,
towards the end, bro.
Brian and we were both crap in high school, but good, really strong in college. So if anybody's listening and you got a high school student who's not lighting it on fire, they might be awesome in college. And I would say,
Wait, are
Brian,
you calling yourself strong in college? Because didn't you get kicked out?
I got kicked out, but when I went back, I got straight A's, and I graduated with a cumulative GPA of like 3.9.
Okay.
And you too,
All
right?
right.
You were a straight A student in college.
Oh, well, yeah, by the way, my problem in high school, I was absolutely abysmal. I didn't graduate. I had to go to summer school just to, poor mom. I mean, we're talking about Peru, but poor mom, when she found out that I wasn't going to graduate high school with my class and I couldn't walk and I couldn't get my diploma and she couldn't see me graduate, that had to be a hard blow for you, mom.
I kept calling. Remember, I kept calling and saying, "Okay, well,
Oh no.
when's graduation? I want to come up and take you to lunch."
Ah, oh
And
boy,
you would say, "Oh,
yeah.
I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. I'm not sure of the time and the date yet."
You had to keep stringing it out. It's like, oh, I'll get
Yeah,
back to you, Mom. I'm just not sure.
yeah,
This is
exactly.
yeah. I mean, I was so far off the rails, and then yeah, and then we had to give her the truth that I did not graduate, and I couldn't walk, and I couldn't get my diploma, and that I had to go to summer school. It was very anticlimactic, and poor mom, you know. But our mom is the most supportive person in the world, and so at the times that I've told her even the biggest, baddest news, or the biggest, greatest news, or whatever, one thing about mom is there's a moment of hurt, but you're never in doubt where you stand with mom. It's not conditional on anything that's going on in your life. Mom has always made it clear, and I've striven to do this with my kids too, that the love isn't conditional. Your feelings about their actions right now can be conditional, but the love isn't. So when I told that to mom, she very quickly rebounded and wanted to help me get where I needed to be. I mean, I had to go to summer school just to qualify to be a private in the Army. So that tells you how bad my high school experience was. But yes, once I got out of the Army and I went to college, I was straight A's in honor society because I had already figured out what ailed me by then.
Yeah, yeah, and I got straight A's in college too. So for anybody who might have a teenager who seems to be off the rails, just know it's not over for them by any means.
That's right.
I like to tell people that
They've got
because
a second, third, and fourth act to still go, a fifth act, a sixth act. How many acts have you had, Mom? I'm like 8 acts. I mean,
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, and I wanted to say, on the side of my refrigerator, I have my 10th grade report card. Uh, around the other side. Brian's visiting me right now.
Oh,
Should
yeah,
I?
Brian's in San
I'm in
Diego.
mom's house. Yeah. Should I show that on the? Should I
No,
post
no,
this
no.
on
We'll
the?
take their word for it. We'll
Okay.
take their word for it.
Okay.
And it was really pretty sad. And I keep it up there just to remind myself that you could have some really bad episodes, and I've certainly have had a lot of ups and downs. But your early chapters absolutely don't have to define you, and you guys are walking proof of that.
That's a great point. And oh, go ahead, Adam. I'm sorry.
Finish up what you're going to say, bro, and then I'm going to get us
No,
back
I
on
was, I was, I was,
get us
I was
back
just
on
saying.
track.
Speaking of acts, so we know a little bit about my early act, which was messed up, and then the army, and then college, and then work, and then I ended up in Peru. And Adam's act was his Peru journey was a little bit accelerated, but you came down to Peru your first 2 times down to Peru must be especially noteworthy. They were both to Cajamarca. One was to meet the girl that you knew Adam wanted to marry. And the second time you came down was to meet your first grandchild. So talk a little bit about how the impact Cajamarca made on you when you came that first time, and the impact it came the second time, knowing that you were going to meet your first grandchild. What were those 2 visits like?
Yeah. Well, as you might recall, I was on a vacation from work, and we were in Panama
Panama,
when we
yeah.
got the news. This was in 2008 that Amara was born. And we flew from Panama City to Lima and then to Cajamarca. And I was beside myself with joy, knowing I was going to meet my baby.
Was that the
And
first time you met my wife, Cecilia, also
yes,
Peruvian? Was that the first time you met Ceci? So you met Ceci right after childbirth.
And how old were you
yes.
when Amara was born, Brian? You said you were born in 1965?
I would
Me?
take it easy,
Brian?
buddy. Take it
69,
easy. I was born in
69.
68.
68.
I was 39 when Amara was born. And that was yeah. So I was a fairly old first time father.
Mhm.
And
See, that's how old I was when Adam was born, or close to it. And
right, but
so
you had
we'll
your
say
first
it's old.
son. You had your first son 14,
Yeah,
15 years before that,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah.
So when you came down, so that must have been crazy to meet so you met your oldest son's wife like 4 days after she had given birth, and had a really grueling, hard childbirth. So
Ooh,
she was
yeah.
really hurting. She was really hurting at the time, physically and emotionally, as many women do. What was that like, meeting her for that first time and meeting your grand? It must have been weird, awkward, joyful. There must have been a lot of stuff going on with that.
Well, I don't remember it being weird or awkward. I remember I had a quilt custom made for Amara,
Mm-hmm.
from a friend of mine who's a quilt designer and maker, and brought it down. And actually, Ceci was very gracious and had her act much more together than I think I might have at the
Mm-hmm.
time, after such a difficult time. But Amara was just such a gorgeous baby. And coming back to Cajamarca, I mean, it's a very magical place. And I believe we stayed in a hotel. I think we stayed in a hotel down by the Plaza de Armas.
You did, yes. I remember the hotel. Yep, the
Uh-huh.
Casablanca
And
Hotel.
yeah. And it was incredibly joyful to be down there. And I remember
Mm-hmm.
you, Bri, you were as a new father,
Huh.
you were thrilled, but it was also I think it was a very intense.
Here's the question. You saw me right after my first child was born, and I'm sure you saw Adam right after his first child was born.
I was
Who
there
was
when they brought Isaiah home. Yep.
who was freaking out worse? Probably me. I gotta imagine it was me.
I think it may have been you.
Yeah. Well, as a
Yeah.
general rule, Brian is much more prone to freaking out than I am.
What are you talking about, Adam?
Take it easy, bro. Hey. Take it easy, man. Take it easy. Cool it down a little bit. Well,
Yeah. Well,
and
you were in the
another,
U.S. Things were a little, and you've been married longer.
I had, and
Yeah.
I just have to point this out also, because we talked about teenagers getting a second chance. Also, for all those would-be grandmothers out there who have a kid who's maybe like in their mid-30s, it's also
Mm-hmm.
that could still happen. if you just hang in there, it's not like people over the hill just because they're in their mid-30s and you're getting desperate. I know I've had several customers come into our chocolate shop where it's like a mother-daughter duo, and the grandma's talking about her, or the mother's talking about her daughter, like, yeah, I don't know when this one's going to get married and have me some grandkids, but just take it easy. It could still happen. It's not too late.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not too late.
Well, it was just incredibly exciting to get that phone call from you, Brian, letting me know that
Yeah, of
there was a
course,
baby.
mine didn't happen quite as organized as yours did, Adam, because you kind of met a girl, fell in love, got married,
We were
lived
married
together
10
for a
years.
long time.
Yeah, we were married 10 years.
Yeah, and then had your kid. But and a lot of this sort of happened with mom's presence. But when our mining contract ended, and then we were doing a big contract in 2007, a big project on the coast of Peru. And one day in late 2007, that project went away with one stroke of the pen of the U.S. president. The Congress had killed the mixing credit that made that project financially viable. And so I found myself with no work, no business, having just spent my savings on a project. And then I went to Lima and about to try to do some follow up on that project. And about 5 days later, I found out that my at the time girlfriend had gotten pregnant. And I asked her to marry me, and she took an alarming amount of time to say yes. But when she and you really helped me to kind of make the decision about how to move forward in that scenario, Adam. And then I recall that I don't know if I did it from Cajamarca or from Lima, but right out of the blue, I called mom and said, "Hey, so just to let you know, you're going to be a grandma, and also I'm getting married." And these were bolts from the blue. How did that impact you, Mama? That must have been like beyond shocking.
I was thrilled because I didn't know where, we always call you a rambling man, and we didn't. I didn't know if life was ever going to take you there, but I knew that you would be a fantastic father. And
The jury
so
is
it was
out. The
just,
jury's out on part two of
No,
that.
the
I
jury's
think
not
that.
out. The jury's in. The verdict
no,
has
you're
come
an
back.
incredible dad.
What was the verdict, Adam? I'm just curious. I would like to
It
know.
was unanimous, bro. You're a great father. You're
Yeah,
Thanks,
you're the
man.
best, bro. Yeah. It was
Thanks,
not a
yeah,
hung
man.
jury, bro. We got a verdict.
yeah,
The case is closed.
And so, when
yeah.
Adam told you that he was expecting your second grandchild, how was that really different? Or it must have been just as joyful, but it was probably a little calmer and less shocking, maybe, because he'd been married for 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, because I was a little older when I had Adam, because he's
Mm-hmm.
15 years younger than you. And
Yep.
so I, it was like a lot of my friends were having grandkids, and then, I was like, and then,
That's what I was saying. You're like, geez,
what,
it sounds pretty cool.
Seven to
what,
10 years of
yeah, yeah. And then you, and then Adam, and then we got on a big roll because
Yeah, then
then
we got into a rhythm. Yeah.
yeah, or not.
Yeah. Nice.
You went from 0 to 5 in the
Real
course of like 12 years. You had 5 kind of every other year. Bang, 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 bang. You had a new grandkid.
right. And women are funny, about that. You think you wouldn't want to be competitive about something like that, but there is that element of, yeah.
And at 5, how are you stacking up now?
Oh, I'm stacking up well. I'm looking at my friends. That that's
Hmm.
a that's a good that's a goodly number,
You
and they're all
kind of got a little smug look on your face when the conversation comes up. You're just waiting for them to
Hmm.
ask you. Oh,
Like,
who me?
grandkids, huh? Oh,
No big deal. I got 5.
yeah,
yeah.
I don't want to, it's nothing, not a big deal, but
5 healthy,
but it is a
beautiful
lot.
kids. I mean, yeah,
yeah. It's just wonderful, and so that was the second trip to Peru, to
Hmm.
Cajamarca, was with Amara, and then I believe the third one was when we went to Campo,
So
and Amara was
2008,
a little girl.
yeah, when Amara was born in 2008 was right when Brian started seriously pursuing the cacao business.
That's right. That was it. Literally, the first trip to Campo was less than a month, I believe, after Amara was born, and I needed a gig, man. I was teaching English to mine guys, and I needed a gig, and we found this opportunity and started chasing it. And as a result, I was in the jungle a lot of Amara's early childhood. But at one point, you came down, Mom, and we went down to the coast and we hung out for a few days at the coast and went to the beach and stuff with Amara. And then we rented a car and we went to the jungle. And you actually were maybe like definitely probably one of the first outside. I guess I had brought like the group with Chef Franz and Paul and them before that. But Mom was the first person who wasn't like a client or a business person to come in and see Campo and meet the farmers and meet Don Fortunato. And what was that like, Ma? Were you how wild was that for you?
Oh, that was wild. And remember, Bruce came too.
Yes, Bruce was there.
Bruce is
Absolutely.
my life partner of almost 24 years, a very heroic
Right.
golden retired fireman. And
That's
so
right.
Bruce
Our
and
stepdad, for all intents and purposes. You guys just haven't
Yeah,
made a leap.
correct.
Yeah.
right. But I told Bruce if I got pregnant, he was going to have to marry me. But that, of course, was a joke because I met him in my 50s. But
Yes.
anyway, yeah, that was wild. Of course, the trip from Chiclayo to Warango, and it was just, I mean, it's mind blowing. The whole, it's such a
Mhm.
different universe. I've heard you guys talk about it, but it's absolutely true. I remember we went to Chiclayo. We were in Chiclayo and you rented a truck. And we were sitting
Yes.
at the bus station waiting for you, and you came and picked us up. And we went, and I mean, then getting to the Chinchipe River and crossing the river on a barge just before the bridge was built, that was
Hmm.
an unbelievable experience. And then seeing Puerto Suelo on the other side, and then getting off and being in this little tiny town by the river. I mean, it was just a different world. And then I remember we
Now, I
stayed
have a
at
question for you.
yeah.
We've had a little bit of back and forth, some disagreement with somebody who had been to Campo about whether the setting there in Campo is quite as spectacular as we make it, and whether it's really kind of in a deep river valley with high mountain ridges on either side. Would you say it's fair to say that we are down at the bottom of a river valley on the side of a river with high, impressive, thousands of feet high mountain ridges on either side in a rather spectacular natural setting? Would you agree that that's a fair statement?
I would absolutely agree that's a fair statement. That's
All
exactly
right.
what it
We've,
is. Yeah.
we've
No,
had
I don't.
somebody disputing that.
We've had somebody disputing that, and yes, and I just can't imagine disputing it because it's so self-evidently true when you've been there and spent some time there. So yeah, and so you're right. Back then, I have a memory of that first trip to. I have two memories that stand out, but they're both before we got to Campo. It was of the drive. You like to drive fast, Ma. Some would say you have a unique and let's call it flamboyant driving style. Yeah,
Two
and I've always
people
thought
who
that
are saying that.
Who said that,
uh,
Brian? Name names.
people have said it. The various
I
human
say,
beings have said it.
okay.
The people who,
Yes,
Unnamed sources. Okay.
yeah, the people who have ridden in a car with Mom are mostly the people
Oh,
who
the
say
people, most of the people that say that have actually been in a car with you. That's correct. And so I remember
I know
thinking
they
before
live to
we
tell about it. I want to make that point.
most of a very high percentage of them do
I've,
actually live to tell about
I've
it. And
noticed most of the people who said it kind of have like a crick in their neck when they're saying it. It's
that's
from the
right.
whiplash.
They might not. They're alive. They might not be the
Yeah,
same,
they
but they're
say, hey,
alive. But I
Kid,
Can happen under many circumstances.
they say, Kid, she really has a flamboyant driving style. My neck is
That's
killing.
right. And I haven't, my neck hasn't been the same since. I remember thinking Peru would be perfect for you. And I remember we were just heading north out of Chiclayo to go to Campo on the Panamericana Norte. And we were going down this one street that kind of dead ends into another street where you have to jog left for half a block and then turn right onto the main highway. And we got there and there was a big bus station right there. And I saw a tiny little gap between cars in both of the lanes that we needed to be to, and a tiny little space in front of this bus that was bearing down on the stop sign. And I just kind of cruised into the intersection full speed, went between two cars, did a kind of a sideways like slide and entered in front of the bus and just kind of tucked myself in there. Everybody was honking, but nobody was really upset. And I remember looking back at you and you were kind of like, I remember you looking like, oh my God, this is the place I was born to drive in. This is the place that I can drive and be myself.
Right. Because, it's not about the law, it's about common sense and, what you can do. Yeah.
Now you understand how me and Brian maybe kind of like a little bit turned out how we turned out. It's not about the law. It's not.
That's right.
Well,
I'm just
sometimes laws don't make sense.
I'm just kidding around. I just
Yeah.
want to make sure, because we maybe only have 10 minutes left. I just want to make
Okay.
sure I say this certain thing. I know the first time I ever visited Campo, I was really struck by two things. First, I thought the people were just amazing people. Beyond the natural environment, the cacao farmers are just some of the most humble, sweet, hospitable people. But also, I was really struck by the work that Brian had done. I couldn't believe it.
Incredible.
So I just couldn't, like, even I mentioned before, even when I was a little kid looking up at my brother who was 15 years older than me, he'd be 18 when I was 4. And Brian always felt like a giant to me. He just felt like this larger than life character. Even though he was getting kicked
Said
out
the
of
guy who's 6'4".
well, yeah, it said the guy who's now 6'4", who was looking at a brother who we didn't realize had been kicked, who flunked high school. But I just always
Yeah.
saw you as this hero. But I never saw you as more of a hero than when I visited the cacao processing operation.
And the
you and the team built.
respect.
Yeah, so you built and
The
just and the way that you had built up this community of cacao buying out in the district of Orango. So, Mom, what did you think when you saw the project and what Brian had accomplished out there? Sorry, Brian, I know you don't like people talking about you this way.
No, I appreciate both of you're saying. It's hard for me to listen to, but yes, I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mom.
It was beyond heroic. I mean, you were there in the jungle and you built this incredible processing facility. I remember going and seeing everything that you created and all of the lovely people that were working there. And and you started from ground zero, not really knowing one thing about cacao, and then created this phenomenal processing plant there that was so important to the community. And then going out to Noe's farm, having lunch out there. It was a mind-boggling experience. And yeah, I was absolutely blown away with what you had created. I couldn't believe it, to be honest.
So I have a question about again, relating to, this is probably about the last thing we have time for, relating to the other side of the chocolate business. Well, I was in the jungle banging away on these beans. Dan and Adam were working on getting the chocolate going. Describe the first time you were able to try chocolate made from our beans. What was that chocolate, Adam? I'm sure you were there, Adam. What was that chocolate, and how did it go, Mom?
Well, I mean, for the longest time, maybe probably 7 years, we only had one product. We just had
so it was
our 68%.
It was our 68%.
Yeah, it's this exact same dark chocolate that we sell online to this day, and is the base.
Is the first time that Mom tasted it, was it the first, like the early batch from that Netch machine, or was it Felklin?
No, it must have been the Felklin made.
Was Felklin?
Yeah, fortunately.
Okay.
Yeah, and at that time, Dad and I were always bringing over bricks of chocolate and cutting it up into little squares and putting it on plates everywhere we went. I don't remember, Mom, the first time you tried it. Do you remember?
Yes, it was here in San Diego. And I do, and I think the second time that I had it was actually from David Bacco, one of your chocolatiers
our
here
early clients in San Diego.
Yeah. But I mean, it was clearly.
I think what Mom would probably remember more than that first time was just probably the progress that you heard we were making as the years went along. Because while you were out in Campo, Brian, Dad and I were here just doing sales activities, just calling on restaurants, and we would keep Mom informed. And little by little, it's like, hey, we got a client in San Diego, David Bacco. We got somebody in Los Angeles. We're telling Mom about this whole time. Chicago, New York. We started filling up a bunch of states. Then it's like, all right, we're in Switzerland. Now we're in Austria. Now we're in Germany. Now we're in Israel. Now we're in Dubai. And little by little, we just started adding more and more countries. And Mom would just be hearing about it. little by
Yeah,
little, and bragging to her friends probably.
well,
And
100%.
yeah,
And then Adam, you mentioned I was one of your biggest customers. I want to tell you what I get such joy from giving your chocolate. Um, and I mean, there's no better gift. It is instant happiness. If I hear somebody is going through surgery, if I hear somebody's has an occasion, it's chocolate. That's, I mean, what better could there be than your absolutely beautiful divine chocolate? And of course, you, Adam, um, navigated the COVID in terms of the marketing and started the B2C business. Um, and then brought in all of these new incredible products. So I just think you guys are brilliant.
And thank you, Mom. And no pressure on anybody that's listening, but there you have it from our mom. If anybody needs,
Completely objective
a
opinion.
completely objective opinion, if anybody's having surgery, if there's any event or anything like that, the only appropriate response is send chocolate, send Fortunato
But
chocolate.
it's instant
Yeah.
happiness. It's literally you. If you want to
So
give someone happiness, give them
what
give
is
them your chocolate.
what is your favorite thing that you've tried so far of our products, Mama? I got to put you on the spot. You got to pick sides here. What's your
Well, can I
favorite thing that you've tried so far? You can say
can
anything
I
you want. It's your.
can it be more? Okay, so the dates,
Mm-hmm.
the mango ginger bites, and I've
Mm-hmm.
just now gotten hooked on the apricots on the cayenne on the chili apricots.
So
Then
fruit dipped in dark
well, the
chocolate
chili
is your
apricots.
jam.
In fairness, the chili apricots are not online right now, but we'll put them online in the fall.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as online, also the pineapple,
The
I'm
pineapple coconut
crazy.
slurry.
The turtles,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the s'mores, I mean,
So
the list is endless.
most of the stuff that you've
So
had,
the whole thing. All right, there you have it, everybody. Her favorite is all our stuff.
yeah, is all I said. So with only 3 minutes left, and since we have mom and we have a chance to talk to her publicly, Brian, I'm going to start, and
Mm-hmm.
if you go, I'm just going to say two things that I know have helped me in life because of who
Mm-hmm.
mom is. So one, mom's always got the great expression about you mentioned, you alluded to it earlier, about mothers and fathers, which I've always thought was great. So she said for raising sons, boys need to know that their dad is proud of them, and they need to know that their moms love them, which I think is just a simple, brilliant axiom.
Mm-hmm.
So for any of you parents out there who maybe have young kids and you're wondering about how to bring them up, um, they need to know their dad loves them, or that their dad is proud of them, and that their mom loves them. I've always thought that was brilliant. And I would
Mm-hmm.
just say that mom has always been our biggest fan. Do you think that that's accurate, Brian? Made us feel made us
1000%.
made us feel smart, made us feel funny, made us feel like we could succeed, and that undoubtedly has been one of the key factors that has
Aw,
um, made us willing and able to go on adventures and take risks and persevere, because we probably had that voice in the back of our head that said, you guys can do it. You probably pull it off in the end.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, growing up, it was more so for me because she was already sort of established in this by the time you were born. But me, I saw mom throughout my childhood who was struggling to start up. She's the
She's an
first
entrepreneur.
wave of mom. Mom wouldn't call herself a feminist, but she, at the time that feminism was starting and women were starting to expand their horizons and be able to do things they'd never been able to do before, mom was right in that first wave of women that were taking their power, that weren't dependent on a man for income, that were starting their own thing. Mom was establishing a theater troupe in a time and place where that just hadn't been done before. And I got a front row seat to the whole thing. So not only is mom super encouraging, but mom has modeled that risk taking, high reward,
That's right.
that risk tolerant, and that grind it out, do anything, never say die sort of attitude. And I'll tell you what, it has meant the world to both of us in terms of helping us find the intestinal fortitude to push through when things get tough. So mom, I just, you're our hero.
Yeah,
The same way Adam was saying about me, that's you. You're our hero, mine. There's
all
nothing we
that,
could say that would
all that,
express,
all that, and
you
look
know.
at her.
I
All that,
know
and look
she's
at her.
gorgeous.
She's beautiful. I mean, she hasn't aged.
aw,
Yeah.
guys.
She hasn't aged in 30 years. She looks exactly
No,
the same. So
all you guys watching, she's off the market, but take a good look. This is your chance. Get a good look.
That means the world to me to hear you say that. Thank you, guys. I'm so proud of you and everything that you've done. And you're talking about the theater. I want to just remind you, Brian, at age 12, you were running my box office.
That is true. I learned my entrepreneurial bona fides early, and I want to go back to something that you told me a couple months ago when we were working in our chocolate store, Adam. And just about that, you get to a certain age, and the time you spend with your parents starts to get. It was even not even a month ago. The time you start to spend with your parents becomes more and more precious. And at a certain point, you really don't know when's the last really quality time you're going to get to spend. And these last 3 days, I brought my son down, and it's 3 generations together, and we went to the beach twice, and we went boogie boarding. We got some quality time. We played Chinese checkers. We just hung out. And to everybody that's listening, if you haven't called your mom and dad and told them you love them, if you haven't spent that time, if you haven't just taken an hour out of your busy day the next time you're with them to just be with them and just focus on and maximizing that experience, do that as soon as possible, because it repays itself. I'll tell you what, I'm feeling full to the brim after 3 days of hanging out with mom and making sure she got some time with her grandson. So that's my advice to everybody who might be listening or watching. Go get that time with your mom before it's too late, because it's worth it. It's worth it.
Bob, you got any final words before we sign off?
Well, I can't follow that. That just says it all. Just buy Fortunato because it is the best.
All right, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and sign off. FortunatoChocolate.com. We're a family-owned business. Brian and I are the Chocolate Bros. You've been on with a Chocolate Mom. We got a lot of products online. In the fall, we're going to be putting up more products. Even though it's super hot right now, you can still get our nut butters online, and they ship really well. Mom, you have the nut butters, right?
The nut butters are incredible. Yeah. And I've sent a lot of them out, but it's good. You can even just like scoop it right out of the jar if you don't even want to take the time to put it on toast.
I've got the dark chocolate almond butter in the house. I mean, I'd be using it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And also for those who are wanting to order, we ask your forbearance and understanding that we don't use thermal packaging for environmental reasons and for cost and shipping reasons. So we do ask you to wait until it cools down so that you be sure and get your product in proper conditions. And we hope you'll try it and love it and think of us in the holiday season, and come by the store if you're anywhere in the Pacific Northwest. We'd love to chat with you and just hang out. Free samples, free hot chocolate, free frozen bananas. You don't have to even come and buy anything. Just come hang out, let us know you heard us and that you like what we're doing, and we'd love to hear from you and spend some time talking with you and hanging out with you. And we just appreciate all you people out there who listen, who go to the website, who come to the store. We couldn't do it without you. As much as we appreciate and love and respect our partners in the Campo and Peru, the farm families, we appreciate and love and respect all you customers out there, and we appreciate and love and respect you, Mama La, for coming on the show and for being the world's greatest mom. So thank you for being our second guest and first in our hearts.
Yep, it's all one integrated thing. We're all in this thing together. And the customers enjoy the product. We do the work of working with the cacao farmers and bringing it into the world. We're a family. Our customers are families. We're all part of one society. We're all living together, trying to do the best we can. So check it out. FortunatoChocolate.com. Come into the shops. And Brian, why don't you go ahead and sign us off with the Fortunato jingle to make it official?
Fortunato, yum!
All right, everybody. Thanks for your time.